covered.
A lot of Johnson & Johnson breakthroughs, though.
That could,
A
we
lot
don't
of
know, we
Johnson
don't know what they
Johnson
got,
breakthroughs.
but,
That makes
That's
sense.
why it's hard to believe that
Don't
breakthrough
hurt
number.
my-
is-
don't hurt
I mean,
my,
I've got nothing to base it on, but
stock.
from what I'm seeing, I can't believe it's so small.
yeah.
Hey, you're live.
We're live.
You are live.
Yeah.
It's 7 o'clock.
I call the meeting Board of Finance on October 26, 2021 to order. Members present, Bill Salka, Kathy Devlin, Bill Meyer, Mike Parker, and I know that Joseph Talisano is on this black box on the center of the table in front of us. He's here electronically. We have also present Chief Financial Officer Mike Marinaccio, Brian Wessinger, the guy who does most of the work in the finance section, and our school superintendent. With that said, maybe we could ask the superintendent for his update.
Yeah, sure. Let me talk first off the bat. Current budget projections, again, it's still early in the ballgame to be making long-term projections, but we're confident that we're not going to run into any financial difficulties this year. We've taken a look at all our obligations and some anticipated but not budgeted obligations and making the necessary adjustments. So altogether, I think from an operational standpoint, we're in good shape, and we should be in good shape by the end of the school year, barring some unforeseen major event. COVID updates, pretty much the costs are under control. I think we're in good shape, that we purchased all the supplies that we needed both last year and over the summer. So we're not running into any cost issues. We're running into logistics issues, as everyone in the world is getting these supplies in and finding them. And when we find them, their prices seem to be jacked up 25 to 30%. So that is problematic. The biggest one now is toner, and that's kind of seems to be a big national thing. So if you guys, I tell you right now, take a look at your toner stocks and start getting some more if you need that. Low positivity rates overall. Within the last 2 weeks, we've been averaging about 2, and all of these are from outside contacts outside the school system for contact tracing. We've had 0 in-school transmission as far as we can tell at this point in time. On last Friday, we ended ended phase 1 of our budget process for school year 22-23. All of the requests from the administrators were due into the business office, and we are in the process of putting all that together. And Stephanie and I will spend the next 2 months really taking a look at all the requests in preparation for our initial presentation of the budget to the Board of Education in mid-January. Also, last week we had the closing on the HVAC study. There was one bidder. I was a little bit surprised that there was only one bidder, and we're currently analyzing their bid specs. It came in at $15,000, which I think is extremely low. So we're in the process of making sure that what they have bid on is actually what we want. So we're going to take the next couple of weeks of engaging in the conversations. I'm hopeful to put this in front of the Board of Education at their November 8th Board of Education.
Can you identify the bidder?
Yes, it's CES. So we're, things are going along. Still early in the ball game, but all seems to be going well.
They're a good firm. We've used them, and they're one of the big firms. They're a lot of engineers, and they're good. What do they have for a timeline to get the analysis done?
They were targeting sometime in January. And what we want to do is, like we said, we were anticipating a higher number. Not that I'm looking for a higher number, but I just want to make sure that what we need to be done is basically a good detailed study of the schools, along with good cost estimates as to, what it would take for option A, for option B, for option C. So, I'm not looking to jack that cost up, but before we sign a contract, we want to make sure what we want is what we get.
Any other questions for the superintendent?
I do. So we've had a lot of discussions here at the Board of Finance. I know you've been involved in some of them about the American Rescue Plan. And I think, I certainly can't speak for the board, but I've had conversations with most of the board members. I think, we feel that, making sure that kids are supported, social, emotional, and as well as academically is a real high priority for the town and the community. We did at the last meeting appropriate some money. A couple of departments came forward with some kind of higher, one of them being the school for the study and the other being the fire department. I guess my question would be, are there other things that we could support in the short term with the town's art money? I know the schools didn't get a lot of money,
Right.
but I think just to support the children and to make sure you have what you need.
Yeah, I think we're in pretty good shape, but there's always more, that we can do for the kids. Certainly, we would probably right now be taking a look, off the top of my head, probably more tutor time, to get some tutors in there so that we can have some more one-to-one time with the kids, or as well as small group. I don't have a number on that, but certainly, that's be something we'd like to take a look at. Our social emotional programming, certainly we have a program in place, but we're always looking to expand that a little bit with some extra modules that we think would be something that would benefit the kids. So there are some things I'm not prepared to give you a definitive list right now, but certainly it's something I could ask the administrative leadership team. How are we doing, and what do you see as any other needs? So I would say, if off the top of my head, tutoring or extra in-class support would probably be the best thing.
Okay, what are the other board members' feelings? If there was a proposal from the schools for some extra supports, is that something we would act on soon? I'm inclined to act on it soon, but I don't know what the other feelings are.
I think that we have in the past asked Brian to look at that issue. I hope that he's continuing to do it. I think personally, I'm not the one to make a judgment call. I think it's up to the superintendent to decide where the kids need help. I think that the younger grades, the younger elementary kids have probably had the most impact, because I don't think they're self-starters on the computer. They may play computer games until their ears fall off, but in terms of learning their lessons, I think they're the ones who probably impacted the most.
I would agree with you completely. I think when you're talking about the lower grades, specifically kindergarten, where we historically, I think I've said to this group and other groups, historically we have around total class size of 90 enrollment. We jumped up to 120, so we had to add teachers, and we actually had to add some extra in-class supports, because those are the class sizes you really want to keep low, kind of K1 and 2. Those are, where we need extra supports for the kid. And we couldn't expand kindergarten anymore because we don't have the facilities. Kindergarten classes require a specific type of facilities. They need a bathroom. We don't have any more of that, so we had to add in-class supports. And I think if you could throw me some substitute teachers, that would be real good, and maybe one or two bus drivers. I'll go back and take a look, but I think we're okay, but we can always use a few more supports, for some of the remedial kids on a one-to-one situation, especially at the middle school and upper high school.
You thought at some point, Brian, that you would have some testing, that you could make some assessment as to where some of the kids stood in terms of their development,
Yes.
based on the impact of COVID.
Mm-hmm. That's currently happening right now. They're just finishing it up.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's right. And I would encourage, think about tutors at the middle school and high school level, because we're hearing from our first year students and even our sophomores that they feel like they lost all of last year,
Yeah.
and they're not prepared for the classes that they're in now.
Yeah, I think that's where when we used our federal grants and we brought in tutors, those were specifically targeted at the middle school and high school. You know, you say, okay, I think this is what we could use. And then when you get into it, you're like, okay, we didn't anticipate this, or if this problem's come up, we need 2, 3, 4 more. So that's where we're targeting all of our tutor support at the middle and high school.
Quick question for the superintendent, if I'm available.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Can you find tutors? Are they available?
Well, we have so far. We'll go out again and try to find them. Tutors, I think, are a little bit easier to find. They require degrees, and it's kind of a more palatable position because it's a one-on-one or a small group as opposed to going into a classroom where you may not be familiar with the content and the people. So I think we'll be able to find some.
Very good. I think we've been, in our meetings, been looking at this, and I feel that way, but Bill too. I've heard it over again. I think we need to support it if we can. We're hearing a lot from our superintendent right now. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing I would add is, just making sure the staff are supported, high quality professional development, if there's extra resources needed there. I know they have the PD days built in. I know the staff, it's been a stressful couple of years, for administrators and staff, so, just making sure they have the tools they need. I mean, I'm certainly comfortable with funding it. I think it's a real high priority, at least in my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, I will, let me, as I said, I don't want to speak for the entire administrative team, but we meet every Friday, and certainly something I'll bring up and can report back through an email to the board or through Mike or Brian. They can send it on to the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ben. So, I don't see any select persons around.
No, they're not around.
I guess. Mr. CFO, would you like to address the
Sure.
Board of Finance?
Yeah, I will. I will hand the first item over to Brian because it is the budget. So give you an update as to the first quarter of the year.
So yeah, giving you guys a first quarter analysis, budget to actual, with all expenses accounted for as of 9/30. We are 1.3% over what a trend rate would be. If you take out the three key components that they count as expenses, but they're genuine. They're not expenditures per se. Debt service, capital transfers, and the miscellaneous, which is a transfer to road maintenance and contingency monies. If you take those three out, and you're at a 24.5%. So you're actually under trend. Debt service, we have a lot of front-loaded debt service, and the others are just transfers. We could manipulate that number however we chose to. We could wait until June 30th to do it, or we could do it 7/1. It doesn't matter either way. So once you take those factors out, you have a 24.5%, which means we're on a good spend rate. On the revenue side, property taxes, just shy of 60% we collected through the end of September. The majority of that being the current grand list, but a good portion being prior year taxes as well. People who failed to pay in the prior fiscal year when we were short on the grand list have come in and since paid their current year as well. State aid, we received our pilot payment during the month of September, and everything else seems to be going well. Licenses and permits have been doing really well as well. So we're just under 50% of total revenues collected. Tax bills for second half of the year, the supplementals and everything will go out within the first week of December, is the hope. And so we'll again start to see an influx of property tax cash flowing in. And we hope that in the third quarter of the year we're up closer to the 90% on that property tax number.
There's no deferments available for property tax, right? All those have expired.
All those
Taxes
have
are now
expired.
due on time.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Any questions on the budget? And the other pages are just the detailed line by line of what makes up each one of those categories.
Are there any questions for Brian at the moment about it? I suggest we take a look at the line-by-line items, and we could bring them up.
Yeah, if you have any, feel free
next
to email me,
meeting, if there are any
or next
questions.
meeting, either one of the two.
Yeah.
And I
This
can
the
get
next
you.
meeting? I'm all right with that.
Yeah, if you want to bring them up next meeting, we'll add
Yeah.
this item again, or if you want to just shoot me an email, either one is fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, everything looked fine to me, I looked it over. And,
Yeah, there's no departments that are currently out of control.
Just put a note on the next agenda for
Just follow up.
opportunity to
Yep.
review. That doesn't mean you can't speak directly to Brian, of course, if you
Yep.
want to. Okay. Bonding.
Next one is the bonding. It's 2 pages here. First one is the school bonding by project. In the current fiscal year, we've only had 1 invoice come in so far, and it's not shown on this. This is as of 9/30. It just came in, I think, last week. So as of now, the school still has just over $1.5 million of monies to spend. We're still waiting on the oil tank reimbursement. They were getting the documents together to go to send to the state for the state grant portion of that. We're anticipating getting back at least the 96,962 that project shows in the overage there. Once we have a number from the state, we'll be able to adjust. So their available bond may go down if that project, if the remainder does not isn't fully covered by the state grant.
We did meet with the Board of Ed on this entire plan here with the new Stephanie, the new business manager, who's going to give all of these. It looks like there's $1.5 million left there. They have 2 years in which to spend it, and she's going to review all these projects to find out really what is the hard current status of all of them. So.
Now, Mike, when they built the budget, did the expected construction grant reimbursements, did we bond the full amount, or did we subtract out the
We
construction?
expected the grants.
Yeah,
Okay.
we subtracted the grant.
I know sometimes the state's difficult on that, they want you to
Yeah.
bond the full amount, you
Yeah.
know, so I know it, okay. And what's our reimbursement rate, do you know, for the construction grant?
It was 67% was what we were told, but
But a lot of things have happened to that program since COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably are aware
That's why I
of that
asked,
now,
yeah, I know every district gets a different,
So,
yeah.
so let's assume that they're not going to get what they thought they were going to get. There's going to have to be changes in the
Change,
remaining
yeah.
projects and
Yeah.
cover up
Yeah.
the gap. So there's
Okay.
no way of going over it.
Well,
So
they have to go and prioritize it because,
they would have to
They would have to
reprioritize
prioritize.
and,
yeah, because I'm,
and they would have to eliminate or modify budgets, eliminate projects or modify budgets. So we made it pretty clear to them that they're not going to go over the 5967
Yeah,
budget amount. You can't. So.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good plan, to just have them kind of check into where the status is and
Yeah.
where the pluses and minuses, I mean, nothing's gonna be exactly on budget, so.
Right, and there's a lot of latitude for them to move the funds around, the way the bond is structured, the way their plan is structured, the way these projects are. As long as they're school-related projects, you can move the funds around. You can actually even establish a new school-related project if you want to. You just have to clear that with bond council. So as long as it falls under the umbrella of the similar type of projects that are being carried out here, which it's pretty broad. So 2 years, you let them know that if it's not spent in that, if those projects aren't done in 2 years, we're going to run into penalty situations here with the IRS.
so page 2 shows the roads projects. everything that was initially proposed in the bond, all the roads that were initially proposed are completed, leaving 885,000 still available. So Todd just recently had Street Scan come through and re-update all of their data now, since the roads have all been paved, and he's going to analyze that data and determine what roads he can do for that 885. And next summer, we anticipate him spending the remainder of that to spend out his portion of the bond and get some additional mileage of road out of the bond that we initially didn't expect. This was supposed to cover, I believe, 40 miles of road, and it looks like we might end up getting closer to 50
Really?
for the price.
They used a lot of it up near where I used to live, because when they went up Mountain Road, it was worse than they ever believed, but I have to give them credit that the job that finished was unbelievable.
Yep.
So.
But the Mountain Road project was in the last bond issue,
Oh, the last
they
one,
did,
not
yeah.
this one, okay.
in the 2014 bond issue, the reconstruction of that road, yeah.
Took a long time.
Yeah, well,
I'm glad
yes.
they did that though,
Yeah.
that was.
Well, yeah, it was
Yeah.
an extremely dangerous road.
Very dangerous.
Do you know why they came in under? I mean, do you know, was it like the cost of
Yeah.
asphalt?
Cost
Cost
of
of
asphalt.
asphalt. At the time that they did the initial estimates, oil was here, and then by the time the actual construction happened, oil was here, and now oil's back up here.
Now the
So
cost is
yeah.
going back up, so he
Yeah.
might not be able to do
Yeah.
as many roads as he
Yeah.
thinks he's gonna be able to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well,
we'll see, yeah.
Still, I mean, that's not a small amount of money.
No,
No.
no.
Yeah, that's great. No, he does a great job.
Any further questions on the bonding?
No?
FEMA, CRF, who's dealing with that? Mike,
FEMA.
Brian?
So we recently received about 31,000 in FEMA monies. Majority of it was from Todd, myself, and Glenn Reynolds all collaborated to submit information for Isaias, Storm Isaias, which was last
Isaias.
summer.
Mhm.
So a good portion of it was that, about 26,000 was recovered from FEMA for that. The remainder was a little over another 5,000 came in for the tropical was a storm that we had 2 years ago that we had submitted everything for. They gave us the 75% then, and then now that FEMA has been told they're supposed to give 100%, they gave us the other 25%. So it's just miscellaneous revenue in our budget this year. It's for expenses from 2.5 years ago. So that was all. That's all come in. We have received everything as far as COVID related from FEMA as well that we've applied for. We had until I think it's the end of this week to submit our final reports for CRF for the state funds. We were initially allotted a little over $100,000, $110,000 or so dollars from the CRF. The initial payment we submitted just over a year ago, and then they came to the deadline. They weren't sure how they were going to continue the process, so they just gave all the towns the remainder of their allotment and said spend it. And so we have since spent it, and we had to report how we did. That amount was just over $93,000 that we just recently reported. The majority of that was first responder overtime, about 60,000 of that 93,000, with the remainder being buying the face shields that you see in the various departments, the face shields on the senior buses, and some IT, buying a couple of computers, is where all those monies went to. Those were all things that were not covered underneath the FEMA portion. So the CRF covered a lot of that 100%.
Brian, did we pay out any premium pay? Now, I'm not talking about overtime.
No, no
We're
premium
not paying
pay.
out premium
No
pay to
premium.
anywhere. Okay.
Nowhere.
No.
Okay.
And then as far as ARPA goes, The invoice for the heart monitor came in. The machine has been delivered. I think it was $2,000 under what the initial thought price was going to be. That invoice should be paid any day now. And then, as we heard from the superintendent, his study came in a lot lower than we anticipated as well. Since the CIP committee met, we've met with IT governance as well. We've had some conversations as far as that goes. And today we had a potential managed service provider came in. We toured the town, all the buildings and so forth, and so he gave us some really good ideas and some favorable information as well. We see some good potential growth with that, and ARPA is going to allow us to help fund this potentially, as long as it is approved by everyone. So that information will be coming out soon
And
enough
to add
as well.
to that same IT governance committee meeting, we've also met with the school board to talk about the upgrade of our financial software, which is also very important in terms of cybersecurity, et cetera. And we're ready, the school board is ready to pull the trigger on that, and we are too. But we need to get the funding in place, so that's going to be something that goes in front of IT governance. And then the final piece is QDS tax software going to the cloud will then allow all of our applications, financial, tax, and assessor, to be in the cloud, and that will be the third piece that goes to IT government. So we're going big bang on these things. Yet this is an opportunity to use these ARPA funds to convert to all this and get us in a good place IT wise. So.
What are you talking about?
What are we talking about? Well, the service. It's really hard to say. I mean, it's going to be
150 to 200,000.
100 to 2. It's in the six-figure category. But I'd say
You'd be surprised.
initially we thought it would be $500,000.
We thought it would be a lot more.
But we're finding out
You're
that
talking 80 to 90 just for financial software alone.
80 for the financial
80.
software,
Yeah.
and then for what we sat and discussed today, we're talking about another potentially 45 to 50 with the IT.
you're talking conversion
company.
now. When we start moving into
Yeah.
support, and then you just have to look at the impact on the operating budget annually after
Well,
that.
that's,
So,
But yeah, well, you're right. That's a lot less than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, we were originally planning to run fiber to Public Works, and between talking to governance and talking to this gentleman as well, really the only reason we would be running fiber there is so that they could hardline into our network. When in reality, we should just move our network to the cloud for Office 365, and then
immediate
now
savings.
everyone is
No $300,000.
You don't gotta sell me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
And
sold.
so now we
Okay.
don't need $300,000 worth of fiber. We
So-
just
so-
need, to move to
So
change our software
Yeah,
license.
so
There we
our
go.
ARPA pot becomes that much richer for other things.
Yeah.
So,
On another
And
note
what's
on
the
ARPA,
security? What's the security position?
Way
when
more
everything's
secure.
Way better.
Oh, yeah.
way
better.
more secure.
And you transfer risk too. You
Yes.
transfer risk.
yeah.
Right now, our servers. There's a lot of vulnerability with our current.
Yeah.
Joe knows the best.
Yeah.
Another note on ARPA as well. Somebody was telling me about it today, and so I looked it up right near the end of the day. The town of Ellington has posted on their website. They have basically like a survey for their residents to go in and say, we think this is the best use of money, and so they categorized it based on the allowable expenses, so that you don't get any kind of crazy. We think we should build sidewalks with it or something that's not allowable. I don't know if sidewalks are, but just as an example.
They might
so,
be.
Yeah, so
Those aren't too crazy.
so they categorized it with what's allowable underneath ARPA and put it on their website, and are garnering input from the public that way. It's an option as well. It's something, if people were interested, it would be something we'd have to reach out to our website host and have them build it.
Yeah.
But if the board is at all interested in garnering input that way, we could look into that as well.
But again, I agree with Bill who initially said there's really no rush.
Right.
As we move forward, we're finding out immediately coming out of the gate that some estimates are coming in below what we thought. We're finding out that some things we thought we needed, we don't need.
Yep.
So I think that we just start out slowly and then we
Yeah.
can move ahead.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah.
But I think some of this, like this infrastructure and the work we're doing with IT governance, I mean, we talk about transform. I mean, it really has the ability to transform and provide a strong foundation for the future. You know, I
Absolutely.
mean, you know, the financial software, I mean, just as an example, everything's paper requisitions. So, I mean, at the schools, like a school secretary or principal or here department heads, they can't submit electronic requisitions to finance. And they can't, like, you know, it's hard for them to look up their budget and access the systems. I mean, these modern systems, you know, a department head or director can log in and look at their live balance, you know, and it's just secure, you know, it's role-based access. But I mean, it just really makes so many efficiencies in the government that it's going to pay out long-term benefits.
If you think software goes obsolete in a 3 to 5 year span, what we're using right now is close to more 20 years span.
Yeah.
So,
Older
So,
than that, it
you
was
know.
developed in 1987.
It's like
Yeah.
one iteration past like a notepad with a column.
Yeah, pretty
you
much.
know?
so,
Lotus
So
1,
anyway.
2, 3.
okay.
Yeah. No,
All
I think
right.
it's a great use.
You don't-
Well, I have no objection to having folks in the town submit their ideas.
No, not
But
at
I,
all.
but I think that the first obligation is on the leadership in the town.
Oh,
to come
absolutely.
up with what,
Yeah, well, absolutely.
what the people who are closest to the problem think.
There's-
need to
I,
be
I think
I
so.
know a lot of people don't have time to come to meetings per se, and I know, you know, having public hearings and so forth are great, but you might get 40 people there, but if you could have an online, you know, form that people could fill in, you might get 1,500 responses that way, and it gives you a lot more input to go through as opposed to, you know, the 30 people that show up to every town meeting telling you what to do with the money.
All right.
Okay.
How about anything further, Brian, on that score?
Nope.
Audit?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, there's the audit item, the audit is complete, the field work is complete, with no issues at all. So we're just waiting them now to finalize their procedures and everything, and then
We'll probably
it's
get it
kind of
next
looking like it'll be at our December meeting that they would have a presentation on the results. But that's just tentative, so.
Okay.
Under the other item, I would, after the agenda went out, Chairman Parker contacted me and asked me to add an agenda item. And at that point, it was kind of like the train had left the station and we didn't really want to modify it. So at this point, under other, I think if there's a motion amongst the group, we can add that agenda item. And the item that you wanted added is to select the date and time for a special meeting of the Board of Finance in the 10-day period, and that would be business days, following the November 2nd election. So I would need someone to say that could be added as an agenda item, a motion,
So moved.
Second.
and that if you vote on that, it can be added.
Just by way of, thank you. Any objection to adding the agenda item? Just by way of explanation, it may be, present company accepted, that we lose some members from the Board of Finance as a result of the election in town. And we, on the Board of Finance, under the bylaw, have an opportunity within the 60-day period following the loss of a member. We have the opportunity to meet and select a replacement
Got
to
it.
serve until the next election. And my thought would be, if we have a special meeting scheduled for the 16th, it's the evening of the 16th, that's a Tuesday, that on that meeting we could appoint a committee to interview potential replacement people, and that committee could then report to the full board. My intention was to appoint for the committee every member of the Board of Finance, and then if you felt you didn't want to do it, you could opt out. Okay? So every member of the Board of Finance sitting on the evening of the 7th, it was my intention to appoint to the evaluation committee or interview committee, whatever you choose to call it. People who didn't want to serve could opt out. The remainder would select interview times, and candidates interested in serving could
That's a good idea.
come forward. That's the general game plan. It may not be necessary. We don't know what the status is going to be, but I think on the 16th we'll know. And on the evening of the 16th we'll know for sure.
That'd be a 7 p.m. meeting also.
Please, yeah.
I would then suggest, because you have a regular meeting for the week following that, I don't know if you want to have, that's the week of Thanksgiving, you might want to just consolidate the business into that
Sure.
special meeting.
That was Mike's idea. I think that's a good one.
Yes.
We don't need to double down on it.
Yeah. There won't be that much pressing business, no.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
we'll do that then, we'll cancel the regular meeting and that special meeting will take its place.
Motion and second.
So we have a motion to that effect from Bill Salko. We have a second
I'll
from
second.
Kathy Devlin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Joe.
There'll probably be snow up there by then, Joe.
I hope so. I'm ready for it.
Okay, that's squared away. Are there any transfers or appropriations? I don't think so. right?
No, there's not, but there's a report on the separation payout appropriation, which failed if you've read the newspapers
Right.
at the Board of at the special town meeting. So it's going to have to circle back at some point. The obligation doesn't go away. How it's packaged or how we decide it should look, that'll probably be up to the selectmen. We have some thoughts. We can revisit it. We have until January for 2 of the people.
Well, we have to circle that back through the selectmen first,
That's what
right?
that's what I said, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So is there a plan to move this thing forward before we end up with a, liability and a risk?
I don't have that plan, Joe. At this point, all I'm hoping for is that it seemed to be the sentiment of the room that they wanted the
new board to sit on it?
Excuse me. They wanted the ordinance in place first, and that certainly will be possible because that's coming up for business and a public hearing next week. So when that happens, then they'll have to recircle back. I mean, if they want to, I guess it all depends on how you package it.
Yeah.
You can, this time around, a lot of people's names were associated with the appropriation. I mean, the obligation is what matters here, and not necessarily the names associated with the obligation. That's another matter, and that's what I kept saying. And I wanted to fund the account. People made the argument that the account shouldn't be funded until the ordinance was approved. I accept that argument. So I'm not sure where.
Well, there's 2 issues, Mike. There's 2 issues here. One is a control issue with the first selectman, and there's a second issue of, to your point, is appropriating. We're legally obligated to pay this money, and we need to get
that's
this
true. And
completed.
And again, I'm not so sure what an acceptable approach is here, but many people made it very clear that there was a bias toward the first selectman. And I would say if the appropriation was for the 2 longtime employees, it probably would have passed and probably will
Right.
pass without any
That's true.
discussion. So I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be addressed by the selectmen in the new coming up, whether or not they want to bifurcate that, whether they want to call it just the funding of the fund with no names, or if you want to just go for it again with the names associated. I don't know. It's not my call. So
I was at the meeting. I think that with kind of some more research and some more, I don't know if you call it due diligence or whatever you call it, I think getting a more exact amount for the appropriation would be very helpful. I mean, I think that, these numbers were estimates from August.
Yep.
And I think a lot of things have changed since August.
Things have changed. We actually
Yeah.
just had another person from the library submit their resignation, so there's gonna
Yeah.
be people added to that list. There's gonna be numbers reduced from that list. So there will be change. I don't know that it'll be brought up at the November 4th meeting. My guess is probably the November 18th, because the public hearing is scheduled for the 17th. So once the ordinance passes, I think bringing it back in front of what will then be the new board of selectmen and letting them then, these are our numbers now as of
Yeah,
today,
exactly.
and going from there. It's probably a mid-November, early December kind of situation at that point.
So you're saying they wanted to bring this up November 4th, which is 2 days after the election, so it's the new board that's,
The new board will
Looking at those.
convene for the first time on the November 18th, not on the 4th. They get sworn in on the 16th.
oh, okay.
Um,
Didn't know that.
When's the town meeting? What's the date?
The public hearing, they voted to schedule November 17th. It's a Wednesday.
Day after what?
That's the date after the Board of Finance.
Yep. So we'd have Board of Finance on the
That's at
16th.
7 p.m.
I don't remember.
And it's a special town meeting?
It's
It's
a
a
public
public
hearing. It's not a
hearing.
town meeting. It's a public hearing. And I don't remember if it was 6 or 7 p.m. I'd have to go back and watch.
It's a public hearing of the Board of Selectmen?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
public
Yeah.
hearing.
So that will be the new Board of Selectmen then?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and they'll be hearing comments on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
to hear comments on the ordinance.
But there's no public,
There's
no
there's
public
no
vote.
or anything that
Yeah.
night. They just take in comments, they close the public hearing, and then at the November 18th meeting, they would vote to either accept the comments and make changes or adopt the ordinance as presented, one of the two.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, anything further on that?
No,
The approval of minutes for 9/28/2021. Please take a look and let us know if you have any comments.
That's pretty good.
And undertake a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Any opposition? No. Hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Consider us adjourned. Thank you, Joe.
Thank
you,
you.
Joe.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Joe.
Put the 16th on your calendar.
Let's pick it up now.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.